Earlier this week, I had a question about what is pigmentation on the face and what causes it. So today I'm going to talk about pigmentation disorders, chloasma or melasma, brown spots, stains, post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. So if you know somebody who has pigmentation problems and needs to know more about how to best manage the skincare, feel free to share the video. Hi, my name is Jana Elston. I run a beauty business blog. I've been running it for about 5-6 years now. So I write informative articles to help people learn about the best skincare and best way to manage the skin. So if you'd like to check out my blog, it's thebeautybusiness.com.au. Today I'm going to talk about pigmentation disorders because it is a very frequent question that comes up, especially here in Australia where we are exposed to a lot of sun. People tend to have some pigmentation disorders. So today we'll talk about how to best manage pigmentation, the products that best work to brighten and fade pigmentation, and professional skin treatments, and then tips on maintaining or preventing pigmentation problems as well. So pigmentation are darker spots on your skin. So some people have freckles. Other people may discover that they get larger stains. So it's almost like this cluster of freckles have joined together to form a large brown spot. And I'm finding that women late 30s and onwards start to produce a lot of pigment in a certain area that causes the brown spots. They're sometimes called age spots, which is because they come later in life, I suppose. Late 30s, early 40s and beyond, women start to notice, and men, of course, the pigmentation disorder in the skin. So you could have freckles, brown spots, or stains. So these are larger areas, for example, around the mouth or under the eyes that cause dark shadows under the eyes. And of course, there could be large stains that women particularly notice as part of pregnancy. So once they've been pregnant or afterwards, they notice big stains across the forehead and sometimes around the cheeks as well. Post-inflammatory pigmentation, this is when the skin has been injured and people discover that once the skin lesion has healed, it's left behind a brown spot. So we're going to talk about all the different ones and what causes it. So let's first of all talk about brown spots as in age spots that people notice in their 30s and 40s that are starting to come up on the skin. And generally when I talk to the people, they're pretty good about their skin. They wear sunscreen every day, so they can understand why they're getting these brown spots on the skin. Here's the thing, and particularly in Australia, we're more prone to it. The damage you do to your skin that results in pigmentation down the track occurs when you're younger. So most of the damage, the Skin Cancer Council says that most of the damage that results in skin damage down the track occurs before you're 15 years old. So this is children who spend a great deal outdoors playing sports. This is why it's so important to start teaching your children to protect their skin. So the earlier they start protecting the skin, the better the skin will look down the track and when they're older as well. So pigmentation disorders can be the result of sun damage you've had many, many years ago. The skin remembers and it pays you back down the track. That's the kind of saying we have in skincare, is why you need to look after your skin because, now, because you want to have healthier skin down the track, not just now, not just looking great now. It's all about long-term skin health. So pigmentation disorders are usually the result of sun damage, so exposure to UV light, and you don't have to be a beach bunny. You don't have to be outdoors every weekend playing sports or being working outdoors. Of course, these people are more prone to pigmentation, but the incidental sun exposure, so hanging out the washing for 10 minutes, taking up the garbage, checking the mail, walking down to the shops, walking the dog, All those incidental exposures to the UV light add up at the end of the week to hours and hours of sun exposure, which is why sunscreen is so important. So when the skin has been exposed to the sun, the skin tries to protect itself by producing a pigment. It's a color in the skin which is called melanin. So it's a pigment called melanin, and melanin gives the skin the brown look to it. So it has a brownish color to it. And the reason the skin makes this brown pigment is because the black or the brown pigment absorbs UV light, and the skin does it as a protection so that it doesn't penetrate further and cause more damage to the skin. So it's a self-protective mechanism. So people who do spend a great deal of outdoors go brown in color, and that is because the skin is trying to protect itself. So going brown is a sign of sun damage. Sun damage that can result down the track, not just in pigmentation disorders, but also in premature aging, the breakdown of collagen elastin that causes skin to wrinkle and to sag earlier than it should, and of course other disorders and diseases that could be more serious, like skin cancers. So when your skin goes brown, it's a sign of damage. So brown spots are the result of having your skin exposed to the UV light over years. And the pigmentation becomes irregular in the skin and tends to deposit in one particular spot that causes the brown spot or the age spot. So those are age spots or brown spots. Freckles are a little bit different. They're more hereditary. You'll find that it tends to appear in families. And I find freckles often appear in children if they've been exposed to a lot of sun. And they tend to, if they protect their skin, they tend to fade over the years. So once they become adults, the pigmentation has kind of, or the freckles have kind of disappeared. With certain genetic types, of course, the Irish and Scottish people, they tend to, my husband has red hair, very light skin, and he has uneven pigmentation all over. He's got like freckles all over. So there are certain genetical backgrounds that cause different types of pigmentation. In the stains, for example, people from India, Indonesia, they can get brown stains around the mouth or under the eyes, and that's genetic. It is triggered by UV light, and in these types of skins, it is also triggered by heat. Heat or friction is they're very sensitive to heat and friction. So certain skin types, it's not just the UV light, it's heat and friction. And think about that, or remember that, because we'll talk about prevention and treatment of pigmentation disorders. So the stains that can occur around the mouth and under the eyes are generally genetic. Then we talked about stains that can occur around the forehead or around the cheeks and eyes here as part of pregnancy. So during pregnancy, a woman is producing hormones, and these hormones can trigger what's called the mask of pregnancy stain, which can occur around the forehead, around the cheeks here. And that's common in, I've found, Mediterranean skins, so Greek, Italian backgrounds, Lebanese backgrounds, they're more prone to these kind of stains as well. They tend to react to friction very easily, as well as UV light, so we'll talk about those. So that's another pigmentation disorder. And then we need to talk about post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation. So as the name describes, is after the skin has experienced some type of inflammation, the skin deposits pigment in that area to try as part of the healing process, recovery process. So when that lesion or the inflammation subsides, the pigment is then evident. So you see the pigment in the area. So if you're prone to breakouts, and particular skin types are more susceptible to this, my Thai friends, Filipino friends, Chinese, Asian friends, they are very susceptible to this. I had a friend who on her legs. She was in her 40s, but her legs were just covered with pigmentation spots. And I said, what happened there? She goes, oh, when I was younger, I fell over, scratched my leg, and then, after it healed, it turned into brown spots. So they're very prone to that. So post-inflammatory can occur in anyone as well, in Caucasian skin. So particularly if they had acne or some type of injury to the skin. So what's really important, if you do have acne, do not pick, do not squeeze your pimples, because that damage can later turn to pigmentation. Bruises sometimes can turn to pigmentation in some people. So it's same thing, injury and inflammation in the skin. So it's really important, if you do have acne or some kind of injury to the skin, you've got to use skincare that enhances healing and recovering to reduce the inflammation and minimizing any trauma on the skin to minimize the pigmentation problems down the track. So post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation can occur in most people as a result if you're picking at your spots. So be careful, don't do it. Use products instead to heal the spots quicker. So let's talk about some of the causes of pigmentation. So I talked about the sun, the UV light, UVA, UVB trigger a response in the skin to protect itself, and the skin produces pigmentation. The minute you see sunlight, so if it's dark, or if you're in a dark room, you're not exposed to sun damage. But the minute you see sunlight, you can be experiencing sun damage if you're outdoors. And that's from early on in the morning to late at night. It doesn't have to be just the middle of the day. In fact, if you follow the UV ratings, particularly here in Australia, I tend to look at them every day. During winter, we experience a UV rating during the day of about 6, which is around the middle of the day, which is at its highest. In summer, we can experience UV ratings of up to 16, which is extreme. And on the website, they suggest you wear your sunscreen from 7 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night, pretty much all day, as soon as it becomes light. It's so extreme. So sun is the main cause of pigmentation. However, I've suggested that injury to the skin or friction can be a result of pigmentation. So friction in some people, as in like under the armpits, between the thighs, or anywhere on the skin, can trigger pigmentation. So certain skin types have to be careful about the type of exfoliation techniques they use so that they don't trigger inflammation that causes a pigmentation. So I'll talk about that. Heat. My Indian friends, this is how I discovered it, because I do have a lot of clients and friends who are from India, Indonesia. They find that even they wear sunscreen when they go back home, and they wear their sunscreen, but just the heat can trigger inflammation. So, and it's quite well known. And it was a really profound discovery when I found that the heat itself can trigger that, well, it's inflammation to cause the pigmentation. So it's important for certain skin types to keep calm and cool as well as protect from the UV light. Injury we talked about, so scratches, squeezes, bites can trigger pigmentation as well. So reducing that inflammation very quickly is important. Hormones, we talked about hormones as in pregnancy, but even stress hormones. There's been some articles written just lately I've been reading. They're discovering that stress can be a trigger for pigmentation in some people, and it's kind of related to the liver. I'm not an expert on this area yet, but it can be a result of stress as well, and the hormones that stress triggers particularly. So hormones in some people will trigger that pigmentation. And of course, genetics, we talked about how some people are more susceptible to pigmentation. So let's talk about how to treat pigmentation at home, how you can enhance the treatments with the professional treatments, and then we'll talk about the maintenance, how to maintain or prevent pigmentation. If you're lucky enough, you don't have pigmentation yet, how to prevent because prevention is the best cure, really. So let's talk about the products you need to be using to brighten pigmentation and fade pigment spots and to even out your skin tone. So pigmentation protocols really involve regular exfoliation, using brightening agents, brightening products, tyrosine inhibitors. Now, tyrosine is an enzyme that triggers melanin in the skin. So we can use ingredients that actually block that enzyme that produces the melanin, the pigment. So tyrosine inhibitors, and then protection. Protection to prevent that pigmentation from going darker or getting worse. So at home, the first thing, if you're really serious about treating your pigmentation problems, if you're really serious about fading the pigmentation and even out the skin tone, the first thing you need to commit, and this is not negotiable, you must wear sunscreen every single day. If you find this too hard or too complicated, don't even bother. Sunscreen is not negotiable because the UV light will keep on triggering the melanin response in the skin while you're trying to treat it. So it's not negotiable, unfortunately. So what I suggest to my clients is keep your sunscreen next to your toothbrush. So in the morning when you brush your teeth, you remember to apply your sunscreen. So if you tell me you're not wearing your sunscreen, you haven't brushed your teeth today. All right? So it's about building a good routine at home and having it right there so you don't miss it. Don't put it in the drawer because you'll forget about it. Keep it next to your toothbrush so you remember to apply it every single day. My routine is I cleanse in the morning, lotion, I apply my serums and moisturizers, then I apply sunscreen, and then I go and have breakfast. Because by the time I've layered all these products on the skin feels a little bit moist, and trying to put makeup on straight after would just slide. So what I do is let that sit and absorb into the skin, because the sunscreen especially needs to absorb in the skin to work properly. And so after breakfast, I come back and that's when I apply my makeup. So I put my primer on and makeup and it goes on flawlessly. So that's the trick. Now, applying your sunscreen is important that you apply adequate amount. It actually has to go on quite thick. Most people make the mistake of applying a very thin layer of sunscreen and they don't get enough protection, which can result in sun damage, pigmentation, or even burns. So how much should you be using just on the face, neck, and décolletage? So for the face, neck, and décolletage, you should be using a minimum of 3 mils. So 3 to 5 mils is like a tablespoon. Now that's a lot, which is why after I've put it on, I then go and have my breakfast to let that absorb. And finding a good formula for sunscreen that has built-in powders will help, because that will then help to mattify the sunscreen so your skin doesn't feel greasy. The sunscreen you want to be using is a broad spectrum sunscreen. Now, most of the sunscreens sold today are broad spectrum sunscreen, but do check, because you just never know if somebody snuck something else in. So broad spectrum means it actually tells you on the label it's broad spectrum, and it has to block UVA and UVB rays, both of them. Because UVA are the aging rays, they get deep into the dermis, they can break down collagen, elastin, cause accelerated aging, deep pigmentation problems. The UVB are the burning rays, which penetrated into the epidermis, the top layers of the skin, and cause that burning reaction. But down the track, they are responsible for skin cancers, and they are responsible for pigmentation as well. So you need a sunscreen that blocks both. Whether you use a physical sunscreen or a chemical sunscreen is a personal preference. Most sunscreen that are 50 plus are a combination of both. Getting a physical sunscreen that's a 50 plus is very difficult to make it pleasant to use. They're very thick because they have to contain a lot of minerals in order to block out to be an SPF 50. So usually you find SPF 50s are a combination. It's for formulators, it's a constant challenge to develop a formula that people find easy, pleasant to use, that doesn't feel greasy and heavy, yet it provides good protection as well. So it's a balancing act, really. So I'll talk about the differences between physical and chemical sunscreen on another episode. And in fact, I've got a really good blog post about it, so I'll link to it below. So it's your own preference, but make sure you do wear your sunscreen every day, and that's how you start long-term fading that pigmentation and preventing it from coming back. So that's the first step. Next, the protocol for treating pigmentation disorders is exfoliation, regular exfoliation, to lift off the pigmented cells and to brighten the complexion, even out the skin tone. So regular exfoliation is really important. Now, in the beginning, you can really enhance that exfoliation with stronger products for a short period of time, and then come back to a more gentle exfoliation routine as a long term. However, it has to be done carefully. So it's always best that you get the advice of a beauty therapist on which exfoliants and what kind of exfoliation you can do for your skin, because certain skin types can actually react to over exfoliation by triggering more melanin. So it's a real balancing act. So let's talk about, for example, a Caucasian skin. Caucasian skin is pretty tough. We can hit it with scrubs, AHA products at home. So you can use cleansers with built-in glycolics or lactic acids, and a scrub as well. You can use serums that have AHA, BHAs, or even night creams to exfoliate the skin. So Caucasian skin tends to respond really well to it. However, as the skin gets darker, so your Mediterranean skin, for example, Indonesian skins, Asian skins, they start to then react to friction and heat. So you've got to be careful about what kind of exfoliant you use on them. So generally for this kind of skins, we would use exfoliants that are gentler and used over a longer period of time. So you have to be more patient, unfortunately, if you've got that skin type. So you gently treat the skin with AHAs, with exfoliants, over a longer period of time to get that result without triggering the inflammation that can cause further problems. So exfoliants such as gentle scrubs would be appropriate for that Indonesian, Asian skin, Mediterranean skin. Microdermabrasion is okay if it's done softly. So professional treatments that will enhance that would be such as microdermabrasion or gentle AHA peels, or even enzyme peels. So there are products that you can use at home, and normally you will find these products in your beauty salons where beauty therapists sell the professional strength products that treat pigmentation. So sun protection, exfoliation is very important, regular exfoliation, and with good exfoliation you see results very, very quickly. Then you need to brighten that pigmentation or fade it. So ingredients such as brightening agents such as licorice are very good. So there's botanical extracts that actually brighten the complexion. Willow bark, which is related to salicylic acid or aspirin. Willow bark is really good at brightening the complexion. Lactic acid is a gentle type of AHA, and it has a brightening effect on the skin as well. Citric acid, which is another AHA, has a nice brightening effect on the skin. So using brightening agents, working that into your skincare routine, and the more brightening agents you have, that you layer, the better. So you can have brightening agents in your cleansers, in your toners, in your serums, in your creams, in your masks, in your exfoliants. So the more products you use that have brightening agents built into them, the better, the faster you get the results. So try and use products that work together to give you the optimum result. You see it much faster and more dramatic result. So we brighten, and then we prevent pigmentation from forming with ingredients such as vitamin C, ascorbic acid. Vitamin C is a tyrosine inhibitor. That means it blocks the enzymes that produce the pigmentation in the skin. Niacinamide, which is B3, is also a tyrosine inhibitor. So it blocks melanin production. And today, more sophisticated skincare develop peptides. So these are synthetic chains of amino acids, peptides, designed specifically to be tarnase inhibitors as well. So they develop these ingredients to communicate with the cells or to, go in and block the action of the melanin production. So there are certain type of peptides that can also be tarnase inhibitors and brightening agents as well. So you want to protect the skin, exfoliate regularly, use brightening agents, tarnase inhibitors, such as vitamin C, niacinamide, and you want to also use antioxidants. Antioxidants give your skin the ability to fight free radicals that can trigger pigmentation as well. So antioxidants from the plant world are fantastic botanical extracts, such as resveratrol, green tea, aloe vera. Lots of plants have a powerful antioxidant action. Your berries and fruits, powerful antioxidants. So having some of these extracts also in the skincare will help with the pigmentation disorder and reversing sun damage. Prickly pear just came to mind. That's another really good one at helping reverse sun damage and pigmentation in the skin. So there are certain ingredients that work as antioxidants to prevent the problem happening and help the skin rejuvenate and recover from that sun damage as well. So these are the kind of products you need to be looking for to use at home every day. And remember, 80% of what you do will give you the results at home. So what you do at home is 80% of the results. What you do with your skin every single day. Just going to have a professional treatment and then going back home and you not using anything on your skin, or worse, using very cheap and ineffective products, you'll see the benefit of the treatment, but then you go back to your old habits that caused the problem in the first place, and you're just stamping out fires all the time. You're not actually working on your skin for the long term. So it's really important, if you invest your time and your money into a professional treatment that will give you the results, support it and back it up with home skincare that will enhance your professional treatments. See, professional treatments not only correct conditions, but the home care enhances the result of the professional treatment. So home care, get your home care right first before you do any professional treatments. That's really, really important. Now, let's talk about professional treatments that are good for pigmentation. And I will also mention certain professional treatments, certain skin types shouldn't be doing because it can actually trigger more pigmentation. So let's talk about microdermabrasion is very popular to treat pigmentation disorders. It is an intensive exfoliation technique, so it gives you an instant brighter look to the skin because it deeply exfoliates and removes the pigmented cells from the skin. Now, if you have a course of microdermabrasion treatments, the skin starts to renew itself at a faster rate, flicking off those pigmented cells, bringing the brighter cells to the surface. So you treat the stains, the brown spots, even post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, chloasma, responds very well to microdermabrasion. However, if you have an Asian background, Indonesian, be very careful not to take that microdermabrasion too strong. So you request your therapist to make sure they do a light microdermabrasion, not a strong one, because if you do go with a strong one, it can actually make the pigmentation worse. And what I would suggest is, instead of having your microdermabrasion done every week, space it out to fortnightly. Allow the skin to recover, rejuvenate in between treatments before you go and do it again. So microdermabrasion is good. If you have a skin that is prone to inflammation that can trigger pigmentation, then I would suggest peels. Peels are a safe option because there is no friction and no heat that can trigger pigmentation. So peels are a lot safer if you have Asian, Indonesian skin, Mediterranean skin. Caucasian skins respond beautifully to peels as well. So the peels that you're looking for are lactic acid peels with a high percentage of, say, about 50%. Lactic acid is gentler peel. At a 50%, it can give you a really good brightening effect without triggering post-inflammatory pigmentation. And look for beauty therapists when they do the peel that they follow it with a calming and soothing mask at the end. It may even, for microdermabrasion, that's a really good idea as well, because you want to reduce that inflammation ASAP. So after they've done the peel, if they use a nice calming and soothing mask, and making sure that you use some kind of a product at home that reduces inflammation. So there are products on the market that you can use for 7 days after you've had your microdermabrasion or your peel to reduce inflammation and stimulate the skin renewal process. So do follow the advice of your beauty therapist. So peels are great. Lactic acid is very good. If you have very pronounced pigmentation, very deep pigmentation, then you may need to step it up to a salicylic peel. Salicylic is a keratolytic, so it breaks keratin down in the skin, and keratin is your cells are made up of keratin, and it's your cells that are pigmented as well. So by breaking the dead cells down, you brighten that pigmentation. But be very careful if you have Indian skin, Indonesian skin, Asian skin. I wouldn't go to salicylic peel, particularly if it's a very strong peel, like 20%, for example. I wouldn't do that because they frost easily, and frosting triggers inflammation, which can then trigger pigmentation. So be very careful. Stick to lactic peels if you have that kind of skin type. Other treatments you can do, now this is for more Caucasian skins that respond well, perhaps Mediterranean skin. It really depends. You probably need to do a patch test first, would be laser or IPL. There are certain lasers that can treat pigmentation, and laser is a focused beam of light that focuses on the brown or the black pigment in the skin and breaks it down, basically. It dissolves it. So, and the IPL works in a similar way as well. So that's a really good option if you've got brown spots, age spots, the brown spots that some people get as you get older. If you have uneven skin tone, you need to brighten, general freckling, sun damage, or if you've had the mask of pregnancy as well. If it's post-inflammatory pigmentation, I wouldn't use laser or IPL because they work with heat. It's heat type of modality, and they can trigger pigmentation. So there are certain skin types that shouldn't do laser IPL for pigmentation. I'll give you one story. This was actually a therapist I used to train, and she was Korean, and she had a couple brown spots here. She was then, she went off to see another therapist who said, I've got this new laser. It's suited for Asian skin to treat pigmentation disorders. I said to her, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. She did. And she ended up, the pigmentation grew. Every time I saw her, like she would go back every month, the pigmentation grew, and she ended up with large, deep, brown stains. Now, Korean skin is very fair, and she had these big brown stains on the skin. And I said, why do you keep going back? And she said, well, the technician said to her that you need to keep going back to treat. I said, but your pigmentation is getting worse. Why do you keep doing it? I don't know. So anyway, she ended up with these large pigmentation stains that she had a lot of work to fade. It'll take many, many years of treatments to fade. So if you've got a certain skin type, do a patch test. And if you're not sure, uncertain, don't do it. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. You end up with a worse problem than before. So certain skins should keep away from laser and IPL and go down the road of brightening agents, brightening facials, gentle peels to treat your pigmentation. So talking about brightening facials, they're a great option for most people. So brightening facials, we use some kind of a gentle AHA, brightening agents such as the plant extracts we talked about, antioxidants, as well as tyrosine inhibitors. So it's a complete treatment that every single product targets the pigmentation. You can do a course of these treatments and get fantastic results, particularly the stains, the melasma, chloasma responds beautifully to brightening facials. So I would suggest start off with a brightening facial, do a course of brightening facials. Whatever pigments there, you can hit with microdermabrasion or a course of peels, or if your skin is suited for it, you can do laser IPL, and then come back and continue doing your brightening facials as a maintenance once a month. So that would be my recommended treatment for pigmentation disorders. So we talked about chloasma, melasma, post-inflammatory pigmentation, brown spots, freckles, stains on the skin, what causes them, how you can treat them at home, and the professional treatments recommended. So if you've just jumped in and you've missed that, you go back, you can watch the video again. So if you'd like more information, I will link to some blog posts I made about pigmentation. It's a question that comes up quite often, so I do talk about it often. So I'll link to it below. Also, if you'd like more information or you'd like some personal one-on-one, join my group on the Facebook. It's called the Beauty Business Students. Join my group, and this is a place where we can have more direct conversation about skin disorders or diseases or help that you need with beauty tips or skincare. Also, if you would like more private conversation, you're welcome to direct message me on the beauty page anyway. So you can just direct message me. So that'll be great. So I hope you enjoyed today. I hope you learned lots and it was useful and helpful. If you know somebody that would benefit from learning about pigmentation and how to treat it, feel free to share the video. Thank you very much, everybody. I hope you enjoyed today. Have a fabulous week. Have a fabulous weekend. And I'll see you again next Saturday, 8 o'clock, for more skin tips on Saturday. Take care. Bye for now.